The mansion's marble floors echoed with the sound of distant heels as Maya walked into the grand hallway. The soft lighting from the crystal chandeliers cast long shadows, yet the warmth of the opulence around her only made the chill in her chest feel colder. She had been working here for over a year, serving the wealthy Hargrove family as their maid. But today, something was different. The air was thick with tension, and her heart raced as she approached the closed door of the study. Behind it, she knew, was Mr. Hargrove. Tall, powerful, and ruthless. He was the type of man who believed his wealth and status gave him the right to control everyone around him. Maya knocked gently on the door, the sound echoing through the silence. "Enter," came his sharp voice from within. Maya hesitated for a moment, then turned the handle and stepped into the study. Mr. Hargrove was sitting behind his massive desk, a glass of whiskey in hand. His eyes flicked up from the papers he was reading, narrowing slightly when he saw her. "Maya, what is it?" he asked, his tone cool, disinterested. Maya took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She had to say it. She couldn't hold it in any longer. "I need to speak with you about something important," she said, her voice steady but firm. Mr. Hargrove raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. "Go on, Maya," he said with mock patience. She stepped closer, her eyes not meeting his. "I am pregnant," she said, the words leaving her lips before she could stop them. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Mr. Hargrove's gaze shifted from her to the papers in front of him, his expression unreadable. Maya stood there, waiting for him to speak, but he didn't. Instead, he put down his glass, stood up slowly, and began to pace the room. "And who do you think will believe you?" he asked, his voice laced with disbelief. Maya swallowed hard, her throat dry. "I'm not lying," she said, the words coming out quietly but with a quiet strength that surprised her. "I know you're the father." Mr. Hargrove stopped pacing and turned to face her. His expression was a mixture of irritation and disbelief. "This is absurd," he muttered, shaking his head. "You're just a maid, Maya. What are you trying to pull here?" Maya felt the sting of his words, but she held her ground. She had known this day would come, but that didn't make it any easier. "I'm not asking for anything," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I just need you to acknowledge the truth." He let out a frustrated sigh and crossed his arms. "You think just because you say it's true, it makes it so? I have a reputation to protect," he said, his voice rising slightly. Maya's eyes met his for the first time, and she held his gaze. "I'm not asking for your money, Mr. Hargrove," she said softly. "I'm asking for you to take responsibility. This is your child." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and charged. For a moment, Maya thought he might say something, but instead, he just turned away, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. "I'll have nothing to do with this," he said, his voice cold. "Leave my office, Maya." As she turned to leave, she felt a sharp pain in her chest. She had been prepared for this, but the coldness of his rejection cut deeper than she had expected. She stepped out of the study and closed the door behind her, the weight of her decision heavy in her chest. She had no idea how she was going to face the future now, but she knew one thing for sure. She would never back down. She would fight for her child, no matter what it took. The days following Maya's confrontation with Mr. Hargrove were long and full of tension. She had hoped, even in her quietest moments, that things would change, that maybe he would come around and do the right thing. But nothing had changed. She continued to clean the grand halls, served the guests at dinner parties, and carried the heavy burden of her pregnancy alone. Every day, the walls of the mansion felt colder, more oppressive. It was as though the grand, glittering world she had once worked in had turned its back on her. The silence from Mr. Hargrove's side was deafening. He refused to acknowledge her, let alone the child growing inside her. Maya had expected his rejection, but it still stung. She spent most of her days in the house, walking the pristine floors, dusting furniture, and watching from the shadows as the life she had once dreamed of seemed to slip further and further away. One evening, as she was finishing up in the kitchen, she heard footsteps echo in the hall. She paused, wiping her hands on her apron, wondering if it was him. She had not seen him since the day he dismissed her in his office. Her heart raced, but she steadied herself. She had no intention of seeking him out, but as she walked toward the door, she caught a glimpse of his silhouette. Mr. Hargrove. He was standing in the doorway of the kitchen, staring at her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. His eyes, cold and unreadable, met hers. It was the first time in days that he had acknowledged her presence. She could feel her pulse quicken, but she stood still, waiting for him to speak. "Maya," he said, his voice low, but with an edge that made her skin prickle. "I need to speak with you." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She knew this was the moment when things might finally change, or when they might completely fall apart. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Without another word, he stepped into the kitchen, and she stepped aside to let him pass. He didn't sit down. Instead, he remained standing, his eyes still fixed on her. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice growing colder. "I'm not going to be dragged into some public scandal because of you. I won't be part of your little game." Maya felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She had prepared herself for this moment, but hearing the words from his mouth made everything feel so much worse. She had never expected him to be kind or understanding, but hearing him speak with such contempt made her feel small. "I didn't want this," Maya replied, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly. "I never wanted this to be a game. I just want you to take responsibility." "Responsibility?" Mr. Hargrove scoffed, taking a step closer to her. "You think I'm going to take responsibility for some mistake?" He didn't wait for her to respond. "No, Maya, you will handle this. You will deal with this on your own. You're just a maid who thought she could change the rules." His words felt like a slap, but Maya didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She had come this far. She wouldn't back down now. "I'm not asking for your charity," she said, her voice firm. "I'm asking for you to do what's right." He glared at her for a moment, the silence between them stretching. "I will not be shamed by you. You think you can just come into my life and expect me to fix your mistake?" Maya's breath caught, but she didn't let it show. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," she said quietly. "I'm asking you to acknowledge the truth." For a moment, it looked as though Mr. Hargrove might say something more, but instead, he turned on his heel, walking towards the door. "Get out of my sight," he muttered without looking back. Maya stood frozen in place, her heart pounding in her chest. It wasn't the answer she had hoped for, but it was the one she had expected. He had made his decision, and now, so would she. The next few days were a blur of motion and confusion for Maya. She kept her head down, focused only on the tasks in front of her. The mansion, once a place where she could find comfort in the rhythm of her duties, now felt like a prison. Each step echoed in the empty halls, and each task felt heavier than the last. The rejection from Mr. Hargrove had wounded her, but she refused to let it show. She couldn't afford to break. She couldn't afford to let him see her falter. As she cleaned the grand staircase one afternoon, the sound of footsteps echoed from behind her. She paused, the broom still in her hands, unsure whether she should turn around. She had gotten used to the silence, but now, this felt different. Her heart skipped a beat. It was him again, Mr. Hargrove. He was standing at the bottom of the staircase, watching her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Maya's throat tightened as she stood frozen, unsure of what he would say or do next. "Maya," he said finally, his voice low and steady. She met his gaze, her breath shallow. "I need to speak to you again," he continued, taking a step forward. Maya hesitated, her mind racing. The last time they had spoken, it hadn't ended well. She wasn't sure she could handle another round of his cold dismissal. But this time, something in his tone made her pause. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Mr. Hargrove's gaze softened, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of something human in his eyes. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but it was there. He took another step forward, closer to her, and Maya felt her heart race. "I've been thinking about what you said," he started. "I've been reconsidering everything." Maya's brow furrowed. She wasn't sure if she was ready to believe anything he had to say, but she listened quietly. "You were right," he continued, his voice softer now, almost hesitant. I can't ignore this. I've been trying to, But I can't. Maya felt a rush of emotion rise in her chest, but she quickly suppressed it. She couldn't let her guard down too easily. So, what does that mean? She asked, her voice tight. He looked away for a moment, as if searching for the right words. When he looked back at her, his expression was serious. I want to do the right thing, he said. I'm not going to abandon you. Not now. Not with this child. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. This was the moment she had been waiting for. This was what she had hoped for, even in her darkest moments. But something still didn't feel right. She couldn't help but wonder if he was only doing this out of guilt, out of some misplaced sense of responsibility. What do you mean by doing the right thing? She asked cautiously, her eyes searching his face for any sign of sincerity. Mr. Hargrove sighed, running a hand through his hair. I'm not perfect, Maya, he said quietly. I've made mistakes. I'm not proud of how I've treated you or this situation, but I want to make it right. For the child, for you, for everyone. His words hung in the air between them, heavy and uncertain. Maya stood there, taking it all in. Her mind was racing, trying to process what he was saying. It felt like a dream, a possibility she had almost given up on. But now, as he stood in front of her, offering her something she never thought she'd get, she was hesitant. What happens now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Hargrove took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving hers. Now we do what's right, he said simply. We face this together. As much as I've tried to avoid it, I can't anymore. This is my responsibility too. Maya felt a weight lift from her shoulders, but she still couldn't fully let herself believe it. She had been hurt too many times before. She had built walls around her heart to protect herself, and now, she wasn't sure if she could tear them down so easily. But the look in Mr. Hargrove's eyes, the sincerity there, made her wonder if this time might be different. It felt like a turning point, a moment where things could finally begin to change. Okay, she said, her voice steady but soft. I'll give you a chance. But it's not just about me, it's about the child. This child deserves more than just promises. Mr. Hargrove nodded, his expression solemn. I understand, he said quietly, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes. They stood there in silence for a moment, both of them processing the weight of what had just been said. It wasn't a solution, not yet, but it was a start. And for Maya, that was enough for now. The weeks that followed Mr. Hargrove's change of heart were filled with uncertainty. Maya was still unsure about whether his sudden shift in attitude was genuine, but she couldn't ignore the small gestures that seemed to indicate he was trying. He began showing up more often at the house, asking how she was doing, even offering to help with things she never imagined he would. At first, Maya remained distant, not wanting to get her hopes up. She had seen this before, a man who claimed to want to do the right thing, only to back out when it became inconvenient. But this time, there was something different in his eyes. He was following through with what he had promised, slowly but surely. One afternoon, while she was dusting the living room, Mr. Hargrove entered the room, holding a stack of papers. He approached her and set the papers down on the coffee table. Maya looked up at him, her expression cautious. What's this? She asked, her voice tentative. Mr. Hargrove took a deep breath before speaking. I've been in touch with my lawyer, he said. I want to make sure everything is handled properly for the child. I'm not just going to leave this to chance. I want to set up a trust fund for the baby's future. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to take this step so soon. Her mind raced, unsure of how to respond. She had never imagined that he would be this committed to doing what was right. I'm not asking you to accept anything you don't want, he continued, his voice soft but steady. But I want you to know that I'm here. I'll take responsibility, and I'll do what I can to help. Maya looked down at the papers, her fingers trembling slightly as she reached for them. She couldn't deny that a part of her felt a glimmer of hope, but she was also hesitant. She had learned not to expect much from people who had power, and even less from those who had never been held accountable. This is a lot, she said quietly, still unsure of what it all meant. I know, he replied. And it's not about buying your forgiveness or anything like that. I just want to make sure the child has what they need. Maya took a deep breath, looking at the papers in front of her. She felt the weight of the decision she was about to make. the responsibility that came with it. It was a turning point, one that would shape the future for both her and the child. She had never thought she would be in a position like this, and she wasn't sure she was ready to fully trust him. But at the same time, she couldn't ignore the sincerity in his words. She had to make a choice. "I'm not doing this for you," she said finally, lifting her gaze to meet his. "I'm doing this for the baby. I want what's best for them." Mr. Hargrove nodded, his expression serious. "I understand," he said quietly, "and I'll do everything I can to support you both." It was a simple promise, but for Maya, it meant more than words could express. She knew that nothing in life was guaranteed, especially with someone like Mr. Hargrove, but she couldn't deny that he was trying, and that, for now, was enough. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Hargrove kept his word. He worked with his lawyer to finalize the trust fund, ensuring that Maya would have the support she needed to raise the child. He also began spending more time with her, slowly trying to build a connection. They had dinner together on a few occasions, and he even apologized for his past behavior, something that Maya hadn't expected. But the most surprising moment came when he told her that he wanted to be involved in the child's life, not just financially, but emotionally as well. "I know I've made a lot of mistakes," he said one evening as they sat together in the living room, "but I want to be a father to this child. I'm not going to run away from it. I'm here for you, and I'm here for them." Maya didn't know how to respond. She had always been independent, always taken care of herself. But as she looked at him, she saw something in his eyes that made her believe he was serious. It wasn't just about money or responsibility, it was about a genuine desire to make things right. For the first time in a long time, Maya felt a sense of relief wash over her. It wasn't perfect, and it wouldn't be easy, but it was a start, and for her, that was all she needed. As the days passed, Maya allowed herself to relax, if only for a moment. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, there always were, but for now, she had to believe that things could get better. She had to trust that Mr. Hargrove, despite his past mistakes, could be the man he said he wanted to be. And with that hope, she began to believe in a future that had once seemed impossible. As Maya stepped into the waiting room of the doctor's office, she felt a knot form in her stomach. This was the moment that would shape everything. The last few weeks had been filled with change, with Mr. Hargrove slowly proving that he was willing to take responsibility. But now, the doctor's appointment was where the truth would be fully revealed. As she sat in the sterile white room, the coldness of the examination table underneath her made her shiver slightly. She couldn't shake the feeling that something would go wrong. The door opened, and a nurse stepped in, smiling warmly at Maya. "Hi there, Maya," she said. "The doctor will be in shortly." Maya nodded but didn't say anything. Her mind was racing. Would everything be okay? Would the baby be healthy? Would this life that she was carrying be something that could tie her to Mr. Hargrove in ways she wasn't sure she was ready for? The nurse left, and for a moment, Maya was alone with her thoughts. She thought about the promises Mr. Hargrove had made, the things he had said. It seemed like he was trying, but could she trust him? Could she trust anyone who had hurt her so deeply in the past? The door opened again, and the doctor entered with a clipboard in hand. She smiled as she approached Maya. "How are you feeling today?" she asked, her voice gentle. Maya offered a small smile in return. "I'm doing okay, just a little nervous." "That's completely normal," the doctor reassured her. "We're here to take good care of you." The doctor went over the basics and then started the examination. After a few minutes, she turned to Maya with a smile. "Everything looks great," she said. "The baby is healthy, and everything is progressing just as it should be." Maya's heart swelled with relief. She had been so anxious, so worried, but hearing those words made everything feel lighter. It was the first time in weeks that she had truly felt hope. The doctor handed Maya a few brochures and instructions, reminding her to take care of herself and come back for follow-up appointments. "You're doing great, Maya," she said with a kind smile. "Just take it easy, and everything will be fine." As Maya stood up to leave, she felt as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She wasn't just carrying the child of a wealthy, powerful man, she was carrying her own future, and for the first time, it didn't feel like something that had been thrust upon her. She had hope. She had a chance. Walking out of the doctor's office, she felt stronger than she had in a long time. The street outside was bustling with people, cars, and the noise of the city. But for Maya, it all felt distant. Her focus was on what lay ahead, on the life she was about to bring into the world. It wouldn't be easy. She knew that, but for the first time in a while, she felt like she wasn't alone. Mr. Hargrove had been stepping up, and now, it was her turn to take control of her own future. She wasn't going to let fear hold her back anymore. She wasn't going to let anyone make her feel small. She had her dignity, and no matter what happened with Mr. Hargrove, she would raise her child with pride. When she got home, Mr. Hargrove was there, waiting. He had been calling her all day, checking in, asking if she was okay. When she walked through the door, he stood up, concern etched on his face. "Maya, how did it go?" he asked, his voice soft. "Everything's fine," Maya said, her voice steady. "The baby is healthy." He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, a smile slowly spreading across his face. "That's great news," he said. "I'm relieved." Maya nodded but didn't say anything more. She wasn't sure if she was ready to let herself feel too much. Not yet. There was still so much left to figure out. He reached out, his hand hovering for a moment before he gently touched her arm. "Maya, I want you to know I'm here for you. For both of you," he said, his tone sincere. Maya looked at him, his words lingering in the air. She wasn't sure if she could fully trust him yet, but in that moment, something inside her softened. Maybe, just maybe, he was trying. Maybe he wasn't the man he used to be. "Thank you," she said quietly. She wasn't ready to forgive him, but she was willing to see where this could go. She didn't need him to save her, but having him there, offering support, made everything feel a little less overwhelming. As the days passed, Maya and Mr. Hargrove continued to navigate this new dynamic. She focused on taking care of herself and preparing for the future. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to make it work. No matter what happened, she would protect her child and make sure they had a future, one full of love and opportunities. As for Mr. Hargrove, he kept his word. He made time to meet with lawyers, set up the trust for the baby's future, and continued to show up for Maya in ways she never thought possible. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And for the first time, Maya felt like she had control over her own life, and that was all she needed to move forward. As the weeks passed, Maya could feel the weight of the future bearing down on her. The changes in her life were happening faster than she could process. Mr. Hargrove had kept his word. He had been more involved, more present, but she still couldn't shake the doubt that lingered in the back of her mind. Was this all real? Or was it just another momentary shift, something that would fade once the novelty wore off? She was cautious. She had to be. But every day, she saw the efforts he made to be part of her life, to be part of their child's life. Maya had been through so much, too much, to let herself believe in a fairy tale ending just yet. One evening, after a long day of work, she sat at the kitchen table, flipping through a stack of paperwork. The trust fund papers, the legal documents, the future that was unfolding before her, it was all overwhelming. She had barely had time to breathe, let alone think about what any of this truly meant. As she looked over the papers, there was a knock at the door. Maya stood up slowly, unsure of who it could be. She had not been expecting anyone. When she opened the door, she was surprised to see Mr. Hargrove standing on the other side. He looked different somehow, more serious, his usual polished demeanor now tinged with something softer, more vulnerable. "Maya," he said, his voice low. "Can we talk?" Maya hesitated, but then stepped aside to let him in. She had grown used to him showing up unexpectedly, but this time, something about his presence felt more urgent. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice calm but curious. Mr. Hargrove didn't immediately answer. Instead, he walked into the living room and turned to face her. "I've been thinking," he began, running a hand through his hair. "A lot has changed recently, and I know it hasn't been easy for you. For either of us. I want to make sure I'm doing right by you and the baby." Maya listened intently, unsure of where this conversation was headed. She had heard similar promises before, but somehow, the way he spoke this time felt different. There was sincerity in his voice. There was a sense of responsibility. "I know I can't just show up and expect everything to be fine," he continued, his eyes meeting hers. I know I've made mistakes, and I want to be better. Not just for you, but for the child. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Maya felt a mixture of emotions flood through her: hope, doubt, fear, but she couldn't ignore the sincerity in his words. She had been so focused on protecting herself, on not letting her guard down, that she hadn't fully allowed herself to consider the possibility of something better. "I'm not asking for perfection," she said quietly, "but I do need to know that you're in this. For real." Mr. Hargrove nodded, his expression softening. "I am," he said simply. "I don't have all the answers, but I'm committed to figuring this out with you. I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, there was silence between them, both of them processing the gravity of what had just been said. Maya wasn't sure what to feel. Part of her wanted to believe him, to trust that he was sincere, but she had been let down before. She had trusted people who promised everything and delivered nothing. But something inside her stirred a small spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. "I'm not asking you to fix everything right now," Maya said softly, her eyes not leaving his. "But I do need to see that you mean it, that you're really here." Mr. Hargrove took a step forward, his hand reaching out to gently touch hers. "I understand," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'll prove it to you, Maya, every day." Maya took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of possibility. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was a start. A real start. And that was all she could ask for. As the days went by, Mr. Hargrove continued to show up, to be a part of the process, to be there for her and the baby. They met with lawyers, made plans, and slowly, a sense of normalcy began to settle into their lives. Maya still kept her guard up, but she allowed herself to believe that things could be different, that this time, the promises made would not be empty. She had learned to protect her heart, but she had also learned to open it just enough to let the possibility of a better future in. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, uncertain, and complicated, but Maya was ready to face it, to move forward, and to believe that, with time, things could change for the better. She wasn't alone anymore, and that, in itself, was enough. It had been several months since Maya and Mr. Hargrove started navigating this new, unexpected chapter of their lives. The days were long, filled with legal meetings, preparations for the baby, and the gradual adjustment to a relationship neither of them had anticipated. Mr. Hargrove had been diligent, making good on his promises and showing up for Maya in ways she hadn't imagined. Yet, even with his efforts, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The truth was, their connection, while growing, still felt fragile. Maya had always believed in independence, in doing things on her own, and now she found herself relying on someone who had hurt her deeply. She couldn't simply forget the past, and while she appreciated Mr. Hargrove's changes, she wasn't sure if she could trust them completely. As the baby's due date approached, Maya found herself in the living room late one evening, sorting through more paperwork. The mansion was eerily quiet, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator in the next room. She hadn't expected to be alone, but the silence gave her the space to think, to reflect on everything that had happened. She was tired physically and emotionally, but her mind refused to rest. Just as she was about to set the papers down and try to sleep, the door to the living room opened, and Mr. Hargrove stepped inside. His expression was serious, more serious than usual. He had been working late in his office, but something in his demeanor made Maya pause. "Maya," he said softly, walking toward her. She looked up at him, feeling a mix of emotions. She had been waiting for this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure what to expect. "I've been thinking about everything," he continued, his voice low and steady. "I know we've been through a lot, and I know things haven't always been easy, but I need to be honest with you." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She put the papers down, giving him her full attention. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice cautious. Mr. Hargrove took a deep breath, his hands clasped together in front of him. "I don't know if I've made this clear enough," he began, his gaze fixed on her. "But I'm here. I'm not just here for the baby or for some obligation. I'm here for you, Maya." Maya's breath caught in her chest. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment that could define everything. "You're important to me," he said, his voice growing softer, "not because of the baby, not because of anything else, but because of you. I know I've messed up. I know I've hurt you, but I want to make things right." Maya swallowed hard, her emotions swirling inside her. Could she believe him? Could she trust him after everything? She had been so guarded for so long, not just because of him, but because of everyone who had ever let her down. "I want to believe you," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I don't know if I can. Not yet." "Mr." Hargrove's expression softened, and he took a step closer, reaching out as if to bridge the distance between them. "I understand," he said, his voice steady but full of vulnerability. "I'm not asking you to forgive me right now, but I need you to know that I'm committed to this, to us, to everything that's coming." Maya looked into his eyes, seeing something there that she hadn't seen before. It wasn't just guilt or obligation, it was a deep, sincere desire to make things right. For the first time, she felt like he wasn't just speaking empty words. He meant it. "I don't know what the future holds," she said slowly, her voice steady, "but I'm willing to try, for the baby, for us." Mr. Hargrove nodded, a small, relieved smile breaking across his face. "Thank you," he said softly. "That's all I need right now. Just a chance to prove that I can be the man you deserve." For a long moment, they stood there, the weight of the words hanging between them. Maya wasn't sure what the future held. She knew that they still had a long way to go, but in that moment, she felt like they had taken a step forward. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was real, and that was enough for now. As Maya and Mr. Hargrove continued to navigate their uncertain path, they found themselves facing challenges they hadn't anticipated. There were moments of doubt, moments of fear, and moments when they both wondered if they were doing the right thing. But through it all, they kept moving forward. Together, Maya wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: she wasn't facing it alone, and that made all the difference. The weeks that followed were filled with moments of quiet tension and surprising tenderness. Maya had begun to believe that Mr. Hargrove's promises might be more than just words. But as the day of the baby's birth drew closer, the weight of their situation became undeniable. She could feel her anxieties and doubts returning, creeping into her thoughts like an unwelcome guest. She had seen it all before: the empty gestures, the broken promises. Was this different? Could she really trust him? And, most importantly, could she trust herself to believe in something so fragile? One afternoon, as Maya sat in the living room, feeling the sharp ache of loneliness creep in, Mr. Hargrove entered the room. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there for a moment, watching her. His presence was almost too much to bear after all the uncertainties they had been through, yet in a way, it was exactly what she needed. "Maya," he said quietly, breaking the silence. She turned toward him, her heart racing, unsure of what this moment might hold. "I've been thinking," he continued, his voice low and serious, "and I want to make sure we are both on the same page. I know the baby is coming soon, and I know how much I've let you down in the past. I don't want to make any more empty promises. I want to show you that I'm here, really here." Maya took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. This wasn't what she had expected him to say. His words hit her harder than she anticipated. She had been bracing herself for disappointment, for a reminder that he couldn't be trusted. But this felt different. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he added, stepping closer to her. "I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be a good father, a good partner, that I can be here for you and the baby, not just when it's convenient, but for the long haul." Maya looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the walls she had built around herself beginning to crack. She wasn't ready to trust him completely, not yet. But something inside her stirred. She had been waiting for this, waiting for him to see her, to see them, to see what was at stake. "I don't know if I can believe that yet," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know if I can open up to you, after everything." Mr. Hargrove's face softened, and he reached out, gently placing his hand on hers. "I understand," he said. "I know I have to earn your trust, and I'm ready to do that. But I need you to know that I'm committed to making this work. For the baby. For us." Maya looked at him for a long moment, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She could feel the uncertainty swirling in her chest, but for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel completely alone. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew that this was a turning point. She had already made the decision to give him a chance, but it wasn't just about Mr. Hargrove. It was about herself, about her future, about what she was willing to fight for. "I can't promise that everything will be perfect," Maya said, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly. "But I'm willing to try, for the baby, for the future." He nodded, his expression filled with relief, and something else, something that almost resembled hope. "Thank you, Maya," he said softly. "That's all I'm asking for." Over the next few weeks, Maya and Mr. Hargrove settled into a new rhythm. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but they were trying. He was there for her during doctor's appointments, helping with preparations for the baby's arrival. They met with lawyers, signed paperwork, and even started planning for the future, together. Maya still had her doubts, but she also realized that things didn't have to be perfect for them to move forward. She couldn't control everything. She couldn't change the past. But she could control how she moved forward, and she knew she wasn't alone. As the days grew shorter and the baby's due date neared, the reality of it all began to sink in. Maya couldn't deny the excitement that slowly started to build inside her. There were still uncertainties, but she was more certain than ever that she was ready to face them. With or without Mr. Hargrove, she would do what was necessary to provide for her child, but with him, the burden felt a little lighter. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, the first hint of the baby's arrival just weeks away, Maya looked at Mr. Hargrove. "Do you ever think about what this is going to look like?" she asked quietly. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice soft. "I mean, our lives. The baby. Us." He paused for a moment, thinking. "I've thought about it a lot," he said finally. "I don't have all the answers, but I do know that I want to be there. I want to do the best I can for this child. For you. For us." Maya looked at him, feeling a surge of gratitude and uncertainty all at once. "I don't know what the future holds," she said softly, "but I'm willing to face it with you." Mr. Hargrove smiled, a genuine, warm smile, and for the first time in a long time, Maya allowed herself to believe in the possibility of something better. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in months, she felt like the future was something worth looking forward to. The day had finally arrived. Maya sat in the hospital room, the soft beeping of the machines and the hum of the fluorescent lights, the only sounds breaking the stillness. Her heart pounded in her chest, a mixture of excitement and nerves swirling inside her. This was it, the moment her life would change forever. She glanced at the clock on the wall, the hands moving slowly toward the time she had been anticipating for months. Mr. Hargrove had been there with her every step of the way, from the doctor's appointments to the late-night discussions about their future. But now, as she sat there, waiting for the labor to progress, she found herself alone with her thoughts. Maya had made peace with the fact that nothing was perfect, that this situation wasn't what she had imagined for herself. But as she thought about the baby, the child she was about to bring into the world, she realized how far she had come. This child was a new beginning, a chance to create something beautiful from the ashes of her past. She wasn't alone anymore. She had Mr. Hargrove by her side, and she was ready to face whatever came next. Her thoughts were interrupted when the door opened softly. Mr. Hargrove stepped inside, his face tired but filled with concern. He had been pacing the waiting room, but now, seeing her, he walked toward her with a calmness that made Maya feel a little lighter. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his voice soft but steady. Maya smiled weakly, trying to push through the discomfort. "I'm okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just waiting." Mr. Hargrove sat down beside her, his presence offering a quiet comfort. He had been her rock throughout this journey, and now, as they faced this moment together, Maya realized just how much he had changed. He wasn't the same man who had dismissed her in the past. He had grown, and so had she. "You're doing great," he said, reaching out to gently hold her hand. "We're almost there." She nodded, squeezing his hand in return. The hours seemed to stretch on, but with each passing moment, Maya felt closer to the moment when everything would change. She thought about the future, the life they would create together, the challenges they would face, and the love they would share as a family. She wasn't sure what that future looked like, but she knew that with Mr. Hargrove by her side, they could face anything. As the evening wore on, Maya's contractions became stronger, and the doctors and nurses moved around her with calm efficiency. Mr. Hargrove never left her side, always offering words of encouragement and comfort. He helped her breathe through each contraction, his voice steady, reminding her that she was strong and capable. Maya wasn't sure when she started to believe in him fully, but in that moment, as she looked into his eyes, she realized something. She wasn't just doing this for the baby anymore. She was doing it for herself, too. She had spent so long protecting herself, keeping everyone at arm's length. But now, with this new life about to enter the world, she could feel herself letting go of the past. She could feel herself opening up to the possibility of something better, and that scared her more than anything. The hours passed, the pain intensifying, but Maya didn't mind. She was ready. The room seemed to shift, the air thick with anticipation, and then, after what felt like an eternity, the cry of the baby filled the room. Maya's heart soared. It was a sound she would never forget, a sound that marked the beginning of everything. She looked at Mr. Hargrove, his face filled with awe and wonder, and for the first time in a long time, she felt something she hadn't felt before: hope. This child was theirs. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But in that moment, it was everything. As the doctors worked to clean up the baby, Maya felt Mr. Hargrove gently take her hand again, his grip firm and reassuring. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it." Maya smiled, her exhaustion giving way to a deep sense of peace. She had done it, and with him by her side, they would do it all together. They would face the challenges ahead, the ups and downs of parenthood, but they would face it as a family. She wasn't alone anymore. The baby, their baby, had brought them together in ways she never thought possible. And as she looked down at her child, she knew that this was just the beginning. A new chapter, a new life. Together, weeks passed, and life with the baby slowly began to settle into a new rhythm. Maya found herself waking in the middle of the night to the soft cries of her newborn, the quiet hum of the house, her only companion as she rocked the baby back to sleep. The house, once a place of luxury and distance, now felt more like home. Mr. Hargrove, who had once been so distant, now shared these quiet moments with her, supporting her in ways she had never thought possible. They had become a family in ways that felt both natural and impossible all at once. Every day, Maya was reminded of the delicate balance they were walking of the past, the present, and the future. But there was one thing that had become clear to her. They were in this together. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, the baby asleep in her arms, Maya looked at Mr. Hargrove. He was no longer just the man who had promised to take responsibility. He was someone who had come to understand the weight of his actions and the depth of his commitment to her and their child. He was someone who showed up when it mattered most. "I've been thinking," he said softly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Maya looked at him, her heart steady, but her thoughts racing. "About what?" she asked. He shifted in his seat, his eyes locking with hers. "About the future," he said quietly. "About everything we've been through." She felt her heart skip a beat, unsure where this conversation might lead. But at the same time, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. They had been through so much already, had already faced the hardest part. Maybe this would be just another step forward. "I don't know if I ever truly understood what it meant to be responsible for someone else," he continued. "Not just financially or physically, but emotionally. But now, with the baby, with you, I'm starting to get it. And I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to be the man you both need me to be." Maya couldn't help the small smile that tugged at the corner of her lips. It wasn't a perfect smile, but it was real. "You've already come a long way," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "I didn't expect this from you, but I'm glad you're here. Really here." He leaned forward, his eyes searching hers. "I know I've made mistakes," he said, his voice filled with regret. "But I want to make sure I'm doing right by you, and by the baby. I want to be part of this. I want to be present. I know I can't change the past, but I can try to do better." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. She had never imagined that Mr. Hargrove, the man who had once been so cold, could transform into someone who truly cared, someone who truly understood. It wasn't about grand gestures or promises. It was about showing up, and he had done that. He was doing that. "You're already doing it," she said softly. "You've been here every step of the way, and that's all I need. We don't need perfection. We just need to be in this together." His expression softened, and he reached out to take her hand in his. "Together," he repeated quietly. Maya squeezed his hand in return, feeling the weight of his words settle deep within her. They had come so far further than either of them had expected. And though there would still be challenges ahead, there was a quiet peace between them now. They were no longer just two people bound by circumstance. They were partners, family. And that, Maya realized, was everything. The days that followed were filled with small, yet significant moments. Mr. Hargrove continued to step up, not just as a father to their child, but as a partner to Maya. He took on more responsibilities, helped with the baby, and spent more time at home. Maya could feel herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't allowed before. She had always prided herself on being independent, on not needing anyone. But now, she understood that it wasn't about needing someone, it was about choosing to be with someone, about building a life together. And as the weeks turned into months, Maya found herself falling into the rhythm of their new life. They were no longer just coexisting, they were living. They were a family. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set, Mr. Hargrove turned to Maya. "Do you ever think about the future?" he asked. Maya glanced at him, feeling the weight of the question. "All the time," she said softly. "But I think the future is just a series of moments. And right now, this moment is enough." He nodded, his eyes meeting hers. "I agree. I used to think about the future in terms of plans and control, but now I see it differently. It's about the moments we create together, and right now, I want to make sure we're making the most of every single one of them." Maya smiled, her heart full. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that with him by her side, they would face it together, and that was all she needed. Months had passed since Maya and Mr. Hargrove had made their commitment to each other. Their life had shifted in ways they both never imagined, but still, there were moments when Maya felt the weight of doubt press against her heart. It was only natural. She had spent so much of her life being independent, trusting no one but herself. Now, with Mr. Hargrove beside her, offering his support, she couldn't help but question if this newfound stability was real. She had seen people come and go in her life, each one leaving behind their own version of commitment, only to eventually disappoint her. Would he be different? Would he stay when the challenges got tougher? Or would he walk away like the others? One late afternoon, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the quiet mansion, Maya found herself alone in the living room. The baby was napping, and for the first time in days, Maya had a moment to herself. She sat on the couch, staring out the window, her mind filled with thoughts of the future. The house was still, the silence almost deafening. As she looked outside, she noticed the vast expanse of the property, the perfectly manicured lawn, the quiet driveway leading out to the gates. It was beautiful, sure, but it felt so distant, so cold in its perfection. It wasn't home. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Maya looked up to see Mr. Hargrove stepping into the room. He looked tired, but his eyes softened when he saw her. "You okay?" he asked gently. Maya nodded, though the question lingered in her mind. Was she okay? She wasn't sure. "Yeah, just thinking," she replied, trying to mask the uncertainty in her voice. "Mr. Hargrove didn't push. He simply walked over and sat down beside her, his presence a quiet comfort. They both sat in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady but with an edge of something deeper. "Maya, I know I've made mistakes. I know I've hurt you in the past, and I can't take that back. But I need you to understand something. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, for you, for the baby, for this family. I meant what I said when I promised to be here. I meant it when I said I'd be a part of this. And I need you to trust me." Maya's heart skipped a beat. His words struck her in ways she hadn't expected. There it was again, the offer of commitment, of security. Could she really trust him this time? Could she let her guard down and believe that he would keep his word? She wanted to. More than anything, she wanted to believe that this time, it was real. But years of disappointment, years of relying only on herself, had built walls around her heart. "I'm not asking for perfection," he continued, his voice low, almost as if he were speaking to himself as much as to her. "I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be the man you need, the man our child deserves." Maya closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. She had heard these words before, promises of change, of redemption, but something about his tone, the sincerity in his voice, made her hesitate. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe in their future, in the family they were trying to build. But trust wasn't something she could give away easily anymore. "It's not just about you," she said quietly, her voice filled with both tenderness and caution. "It's about us. About what we can build together. I need to know that you'll be there when it's hard. Not just now, when everything's calm and easy, but when things get tough, because they will." He nodded slowly, his gaze steady. "I understand," he said, his voice filled with understanding. "I won't make promises I can't keep, but I'll be here, every step of the way. For the hard moments. For the good ones. I'm not going anywhere." Maya felt the walls inside her start to crack, just a little. There was something in his eyes, something that told her he wasn't just saying words for the sake of it. He was saying them because he meant them. She looked at him, her heart beating a little faster. "I'm scared," she admitted softly, the vulnerability in her voice startling even herself. "I'm scared of trusting again, of letting someone in." "I know," he said quietly, "and I'm not asking you to do it overnight. I'm asking you to let me show you, to let me prove that I can be here, for you, for the baby." Maya nodded slowly, the weight of the decision heavy on her heart. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like she could face it. With him, together, it wasn't going to be easy, but nothing worth having ever was. She had spent so much of her life fighting alone, but maybe, just maybe, it was time to let someone in. She wasn't sure how to take that first step, but she knew that with him beside her, she wouldn't have to take it alone. As the evening wore on, Maya felt a quiet sense of peace settle over her. The future was still uncertain, there were still so many unknowns, but for the first time, she felt like she could face them. With Mr. Hargrove by her side, they could face anything, and that thought, that hope, was enough to carry her through whatever came next. It had been a few months since the birth of their child, and life was beginning to take on a rhythm of its own. Maya had come a long way since the first uncertain days of her pregnancy. She had opened her heart, given Mr. Hargrove a chance, and watched as he worked hard to prove that he was serious about being part of their lives. They had faced challenges, but each one had only strengthened the bond they were building. There were still moments of doubt, especially for Maya, but as she sat in the nursery one afternoon, holding their baby in her arms, she felt a quiet sense of peace. The room was filled with the soft hum of the baby monitor and the gentle sound of the baby's breathing. Mr. Hargrove had stepped out to take care of some work, but he would be home soon. Maya couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. They were no longer just two people thrown together by circumstance. They had become a family. And while that wasn't something she had ever envisioned for herself, it was something she now cherished deeply. The door creaked open, and she looked up to see Mr. Hargrove standing in the doorway, a tired but content smile on his face. "How's my two favorite people?" he asked, his voice warm with affection. Maya smiled as he walked over to her, bending down to kiss the top of their baby's head. It was moments like this that made everything feel worth it. The sacrifices, the struggles, the fears, all of it seemed to fade in the face of their little family. "We're doing well," Maya replied softly. He sat beside her on the rocking chair, his hand gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You've been amazing through all of this," he said, his voice sincere. "I don't think I can ever express how much it means to me that you've let me in, that you've let me be a part of this." Maya felt a lump form in her throat, but she swallowed it down. She wasn't sure what to say, how to express everything she felt. She had never been one to show vulnerability easily, but with him, it had started to feel more natural. "I couldn't have done this without you." she said quietly, looking up at him. "I've never had someone to rely on like this. You've really proven yourself." He smiled, the warmth in his eyes making her feel both vulnerable and safe at the same time. "I'm not going anywhere, Maya," he said, his hand resting gently on hers. "I'll be here for you, for the baby, for everything." Her heart swelled with a mix of gratitude and a flicker of hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. She had spent years building walls around her heart, afraid of getting hurt again. But with him, those walls were slowly coming down. They didn't have it all figured out, but they were figuring it out together. That was enough for now. As the days passed, they settled into their new life as a family. There were still difficult moments, of course. Parenthood was never easy, and they both had their fair share of sleepless nights, arguments, and moments of doubt. But there was also a newfound sense of unity between them. They supported each other, worked through their issues, and grew closer with each passing day. One afternoon, as they sat together on the couch, watching the baby nap in the next room, Mr. Hargrove turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "Maya," he said, his voice serious, "I know we've talked about the future before, but I think we need to start planning. For everything. For the baby's future. For ours. I don't want to leave anything to chance." Maya nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. She had always been the one to take control, to make sure everything was planned and organized. But now, with Mr. Hargrove beside her, she was beginning to see that it was okay to rely on someone else, to share that responsibility. "You're right," she said, her voice steady. "We can't keep putting it off. We need to make sure we're prepared. For everything." They spent the next few hours discussing plans, financial security, the baby's education, their future together. It was strange, yet comforting, to be able to make those plans with someone who truly cared. Maya had spent so long guarding herself, keeping everyone at arm's length, but now, she was beginning to see that being vulnerable wasn't a weakness. It was part of building something real. "I never thought I'd be here," she said, her voice soft as she looked at him. "But I'm glad I am." He smiled, his hand gently resting on hers. "Me too," he said. "I think we're just getting started." Maya felt a sense of peace settle over her as they continued to talk. She didn't know what the future held. There were still challenges ahead, but for the first time, she felt like they could face them together. And that thought, that possibility, was enough to carry her forward. As they sat in the quiet of their home, surrounded by the love they were building, Maya knew that no matter what came next, they had each other. And for the first time in her life, that was enough.